At our company, our mission is to build redemptive communities. It's front and center on our website. We say we're building redemptive communities. We say we restore, renew, rebuild real estate. We want to build redemptive communities physically, relationally, and spiritually. So the physical part for us, it's about real estate, right? That's what we do. The physical part is about the real estate, whether it's buying an old building and putting new life into it, an adaptive reuse, building a town center, infill development. That's how we live out that physical part of it. But it's also relational. We're not just looking at the building, we're looking at the community. We want to build community within the community that we're in. We want to build community with our tenants, our customers, our visitors. We talk a lot about we want to build a vibe in our community so people feel relationships, that they feel that they can gather and come together. So that's the relational part, the physical part. And then the spiritual part for us is how do we use the gifts, talents, resources that God has given us? How do we use our network that God has given us to build things out and then to watch God show up and be present and to see how places and people are transformed? Where does that come from? For us, it comes from the story of Nehemiah, right? Nehemiah, that's the name of our company. My heart was moved by the story of Nehemiah, actually long before I heard the words redemptive community. I've viewed Nehemiah as the first redeveloper, right? He was, in my mind, he was the first redeveloper. And just to give a little bit of context to that, Nehemiah was a cupbearer. He was a cupbearer for the Persian king Artaxerxes. I can never say that right. Artaxerxes followed a few kings down the line from Cyrus. And the Persian Empire at that time overtook the Babylonians, who originally destroyed Israel and Jerusalem, exported many of the Jews. And when the Persians came on, and particularly with Artaxerxes and the others, they sort of began to release the Jews, if you will, to go back to their hometown. And this is, I want to read this from Nehemiah. It's not up there. But Nehemiah, so he's a cupbearer to the king, right? Meaning that he's got to drink the wine and eat the food before the king does, because if somebody poisoned it, they're not going to get the king, they're going to get him. So he was trusted, right? He was in an elevated place. And so the story of Nehemiah starts out with a prayer that Nehemiah has, and he says, "O Lord God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and obey his commands, let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer of your servant, praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel." Prayer goes on, he says, "Lord, let your ear be attentive. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man." And then there's this one line that says, "I was cupbearer to the king." It goes on and it says in chapter 2, it says, "I took the wine," this is Nehemiah, "and gave it to the king." And he says, "I had not been sad in his presence before. So the king asked me, 'Why does your face look so sad when you are not ill?'" Get this line. "This can be nothing but sadness of heart." Nehemiah says, "I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, 'May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my fathers are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" Then the king says, the most important, says, "Well, what is it you want?" So Nehemiah prays again, and he answers the king. He says, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my fathers are buried so that I can rebuild it." It came from the heart. He was a cupbearer. He was not a contractor. He was not an architect. He was not an engineer. He had no experience in building walls, but yet he followed his heart. And in a brave way, I might add too, right? In front of the king to say, "Hey, let me go rebuild the place that everybody destroyed because my heart aches for that." And Nehemiah just didn't rebuild the walls. He rebuilt community.